You ask AI something simple, like what to make for dinner with what's in your fridge, and it gives you back something so generic you could have guessed it yourself. Pasta. Always pasta. You're not wrong to be unimpressed, but that response actually says more about how it was asked than what the tool can actually do. There are a handful of small habits that fix this almost immediately, and that's what we're going to talk about today. First, let's talk about prompt structuring techniques. The way you phrase a request matters more than you'd think. Not because the model is picky, but because vague input gets vague output. If you just say, help me write an email, it's going to write something kind of generic. But if you say, help me write a follow-up email to a hiring manager after an interview, I want it to feel warm but not desperate, keep it under 5 sentences. That's a different ask, and you're going to get a way better result. The pattern is basically tell it what you want, who it's for, what tone you're going for, and any constraints. You don't need all 4 every time, but the more of those you hand it, the less back and forth you will need. And there's a step beyond that, which is honestly one of the most underused tricks in my opinion. Instead of just describing what you want, show it an example. So if you have a writing style you like, paste in a paragraph of it and say, match this voice. If you want a specific format, give it one example of that format filled out. The model is really good at picking up patterns from examples, often better than it is at picking up patterns from instructions. It's the difference between telling someone, make me food, versus make me something quick, I don't have much in the fridge and I'm not in the mood for anything spicy, versus literally showing them a photo of the kinds of meals you mean. Each one gets you a better result than the last. And don't worry about writing any of this down. I'm going to link all the prompts from this video in the description so you can try them right after. The next one is using AI as a tool to deepen your own thinking rather than just for searching. So a lot of people use AI the way they'd use Google. Ask a question, get an answer, done. That works, but it's honestly only like 20% of what it can actually do. You can actually use it to think something through. Say you're weighing a decision, whether to take on a freelance project, whether to have a hard conversation with someone, whether to move to a new city. You can just talk through it out loud. Not necessarily to get the AI to make the decision for you or really give any of its own input, but just to help to make your own thinking clearer to yourself. You can explain the situation, you can ask it to ask you questions that you hadn't thought of or from different angles, and sometimes just the act of articulating it, the thoughts that you're having, the way that you're approaching something, helps you figure out what you actually want. So it's less of what's the answer and more, give me the space to help articulate what I think. That's a genuinely different mode, and once you start using it in that way, it can change the way that the tool feels. The third one is breaking big tasks into subtasks. Something I see a lot is people give AI one huge ask and then wonder why the output feels surface level. Something like, write me a cover letter for this job, and they get something that sounds like every other cover letter ever written. The fix is just to slow it down. Instead of asking for the whole thing at once, we can break it into steps. Maybe we start with, based on this job description, what are the most important things they seem to be looking for? Then maybe we share our resume and ask which of these experiences that I have is most relevant. And only once we've done that thinking together, we can ask, now help me write the cover letter. The final product ends up being way more specific and way more actually you, because you are the one that did the thinking. Same thing applies to planning a trip, outlining a project, making a big decision. The AI isn't necessarily worse at big asks, you just end up with something better when you work through it piece by piece together. Number 4, asking the model to critique its own output. This one sounds a little weird, but it actually works really well. Once you have a draft of something, let's say maybe an email, a plan, an explanation, you can actually use AI to help punch holes in it. What are the weaknesses in this? Or what would someone who disagrees with this say? Or even just, what did I miss? It's not going to be brutally honest the way a real editor would be, but it'll often surface things that you maybe hadn't considered. And it's a lot easier to improve something once you know what's weak about it. I do this with writing a lot. Get a first draft, then literally ask, what's not working here? Or acting as a tenured editor, what are the main issues that you would point out? And that gives me a really good starting point before I start revising. It kind of short circuits the part where you're staring at something and can't see it anymore because you're looking at the same thing again and again to try and understand what's missing. Number 5, setting up your preferences, also known as setting system style instructions. This one's a little more of an advanced move, but it's actually not that complicated once you see it. Most AI tools let you set some kind of persistent context, like a note that it reads before every conversation automatically. If you use AI regularly, I think this is definitely worth doing. You could say something like, I'm a teacher, I work with middle schoolers. When I ask for explanations, assume I'm writing for a non-technical audience. Or, I'm a freelancer, I often need to write client emails, and my personal tone is warm and direct. You just describe who you are and how you want it to talk to you. Then you don't have to re-explain that every single time. It's one of those small setup things that makes every interaction noticeably better, and most people don't even know it's there. Right now on the screen, I'm going to show a screen recording really quickly of how you can add this on Claude. And if you're interested in figuring out how to do it for ChatGPT or Gemini, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to share a snippet of that as well. I already talked about this a little bit in episode 1, and I'll link that in the description below. But now that we've actually used AI a bit more, you might be starting to notice the patterns. The short version is that AI is very good at sounding confident even when it's wrong. And the things it's most likely to get wrong aren't random. Exact quotes, specific statistics, recent events, citations, names of real people and what they said or did. The more specific and verifiable the claim, actually the more worth double checking. And one thing that I want to correct, because it's a common piece of advice that's actually not great, don't assume that asking, "Are you sure about that?" is a reliable check. These models don't have any internal sense of true or false. It's mostly probability-based, predicting what comes next. So sometimes it'll second guess itself and walk something back even when it was right, and other times it'll just confidently say, "Yes, I'm sure," even when it was wrong. So asking doesn't really tell you anything trustworthy either way. The actual fix is just to verify externally. A quick search, a second source, for anything that you're going to use in a real context that has real consequences. The other thing worth being vigilant about is bias. If you're using AI to help write something, a story, lyrics, a bio, anything with characters or people in it, I would highly recommend paying attention to the assumptions it defaults to. Who's the doctor? Who's the nurse? What names show up for what roles? What's framed as normal versus unusual? The model picked those patterns up from what it was trained on, which means it can reflect the same biases that exist in that data. That's not really a reason to avoid using it for that kind of writing. It's actually a good opportunity that when you do notice those defaults, and you can decide, as the human in the loop, whether to keep them or change them. So that's the 6 habits. Number 1, structure your asks and show it examples when you can. Number 2, use it to think and not just search. Number 3, break big stuff into pieces. Number 4, ask it to critique itself. Number 5, set up your preferences once so you don't have to repeat yourself. And number 6, stay vigilant about hallucinations and bias rather than relying on the AI to flag its own mistakes. And all of the prompts that I walked through today are going to be linked in the description. So go ahead and try one after this and come back and tell me in the comments which one you found the most useful or which one you're most excited to try. Thanks so much for sticking around. Next week, we're going to get even more specific about how to actually take advantage of these tools at work. If you don't want to miss it, subscribing is the easiest way to make sure it shows up for you. And if this one was helpful, adding a like or sharing it with someone who'd find it useful goes a long way too. Thanks so much and see you next time.